tonight's premiere of Brave New Films' short piece, Save a Child, Secure Your Gun. I'm Carmen Samuel. I am the program manager of film screenings here at Brave New Films, and we are joined tonight by a wonderful panel of survivors who are very close to the topic at hand. The piece you're about to see was originally a part of our feature film, Making a Killing, Guns, Greed, and the NRA. And this year, with guns taking over as the primary cause of death in children, it was time for us to update the piece. And I'm going to go ahead and just pass right now to Poe Murray, who is the chairwoman of the Newtown Action Alliance, to share with us some facts regarding secure storage as it is today.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Carmen. So my name is Poe Murray, and I have been leading the Newtown Action Alliance since my neighbor killed 20 children and 6 educators with an AR-15 and high-capacity magazines at Sandy Hook Elementary School over 10 years ago. We are honored to work with Brave New Films and Ethan Miller Song Foundation on this very important film screening and the campaign to pass Ethan's Law in the States as well as on the national level. NAA, or Newtown Action Alliance, has lobbied Congress for a decade on a set of bold, comprehensive, and unapologetic policies for transformative changes to save lives. When I first joined this movement to end gun violence about 10 years ago, there were 33,000 gun deaths in the United States, and now it's 49,000. We prioritize 2 bills for the last 5 years specifically on assault weapons ban and also Ethan's Law. And the reason why we chose assault weapons ban was because we knew that that would be one of the most challenging policies to pass. So we figured if we can pass the assault weapons ban, then we can pass Ethan's Law and all the other bills that we need. We also felt that it was important to pass Ethan's Law to create the cultural change that is needed for gun owners to practice safe storage in the United States. Guns are now the #1 killer of American children and teens, and 4.6 million children in America are living in homes with unsecured guns. And 76% of school shooters acquire their guns from their families. That is why it's so important to pass Ethan's Law. And I wanted to tell you a little about the origin story of Ethan's Law. I first met Kristen and Mike Song in 2018 after they lost their beautiful son, Ethan, to an unsecured gun and an unintentional shooting at their neighbor's home. And they'll tell you more about their story. But they honored with action almost immediately after the tragedy and passed Ethan's Law with significant bipartisan support in the state of Connecticut. Soon thereafter, Kristen and Mike reached out to me to see if Newtown Action Alliance would be interested in helping them pass the federal version of Ethan's Law. And of course, we said yes. So we set out to pass Ethan's Law on the national level. We met with Rosa DeLauro, who was their representative in Connecticut, and asked her to co-sponsor the bill. And at the time, we had a majority in the House, and a narrow majority in the Senate. So we knew that we had to rack up the votes that were needed to pass it in the House of Representatives. So with Kristen and Mike's lead efforts on meeting with congressional members, there were over 400 meetings, both Democrats and Republicans. And we actually whipped the votes. We had secured the votes needed to pass Ethan's Law even before the Buffalo, Highland Park, and Uvalde shooting. And we were able to pass Ethan's Law in the House of Representatives last year during 117 Congress with bipartisan support. Unfortunately, that bill did not move forward in the Senate because we didn't have a filibuster-proof numbers. But we also work mainly on the House of Representatives, and we still need to work on the Senate right now. And since we don't have a majority in the House, it's been challenging. But Angela Weber, who is our Community Engagement Director, will be discussing and giving you an update on our efforts to pass Ethan's Law during 118 Congress. But be assured that we don't take no for an answer. We will continue to whip the votes with the survivors who are here, who have traveled to DC so many times with us, to urge Congress to pass this common sense gun law that is supported by the majority of Americans. So I encourage you to watch the film, adopt the film as your own, use it to raise awareness and activate community members so that we can pass Ethan's Law on the national level. Don't think that a small group of people cannot create the change that's necessary. A small group of us were able to pass Ethan's Law in the House of Representatives, and I know that we'll be able to pass it since the president is ready and willing to sign this bill into law. So thank you so much, Carmen and Kristen and Mike and everyone else on this panel today. And I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Poe. And I'm just going to go ahead and introduce our panelists that we'll see right after the film. We've got Gwen LaCroix, Angela Weber, Tara Donnelly, and Mike Song. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start the film.
Like best friends, we would hang out every day after school.
We were playing around at first. We were just hanging out, playing with the dogs.
Then he was just kind of laughing.
Just having a good time.
My mom wasn't home because she was working.
He was looking for something.
I came out and said, "Hey, look at this."
He got the gun out, I took it.
Why did you want to get the gun?
I wanted to show it to them, that was all.
Say anything about whether the gun was real or not?
Yes, he told me it wasn't real. Didn't even look real.
He said, "Let me do it, let me do
I'm
it."
guessing he was trying to figure out if it was actually real.
And he handed it to me.
He was just kind of laughing and pointing it.
Did you hear one?
He was like messing with the trigger and stuff.
We were standing right in front of him. He was getting into a car, but he didn't believe me.
Yes, I think so.
Where are they shot?
I've been told they've been shot in the shoulder.
Okay, are you with them?
I felt like the whole ground was shaking.
I didn't know what to do.
And what happened after you pulled the trigger?
I wouldn't have fired it if it wasn't real.
Are they in the house?
Yes, they're in the house.
Was it intentional? Sir, can you talk to me? Was
On
this
the 7th Street.
Can you tell me who's been shot? Who's been shot?
I heard a bang. I was really scared.
Right, the person inside the residence has been shot?
Put pressure on the wound.
It's my best friend.
He was saying, call 911, call 911.
Sir?
Clean it up and put pressure.
And from there, tragedy unfolded. Couple Force Lindsay Cohen joins us live from 11th Street in Puyallup, where the shooting took place. Lindsay?
Yeah, Mary, tonight police still believe this was accidental and unintentional.
It was a little after 4 because school got out at about 3:30 and the police came to my job.
I just gotten home around 4 o'clock and my brother still isn't home yet.
A simple show and tell led to the gunfire.
It appears he didn't believe it was real and fired the shotgun through.
One of the guns was not locked up. It was behind our bed. I don't know why.
Do you know which one?
The shotgun.
Is that for safety, maybe?
Possibly from my husband's perspective, it was safe. I'm not sure. Okay. I don't know why it wasn't locked up.
You didn't know if it was loaded or not?
No, I didn't know if it was loaded or not. And they told me, "Do you have any children?" I said, "Jose and Eddie." And they said, "Well, we're here about Eddie. There's been an accident. Eddie was shot." I said, "Well, where is he?" And they said, "Well, he's at the hospital, but he didn't make it." And I just started screaming.
I received a phone call. I could hear my aunt screaming in the background. She was saying, "They killed him, they killed him." I was like, "Who you were talking about?" And she was like, "Eddie." "Who killed Eddie?" And then the phone just dropped.
So my son came home and he sat me down. He said, "Mom, something happened to Eddie Z." And I said, "What do you mean? How does a child get shot by a friend from school? People just leave guns around for children to shoot children? Something's got to be done. This is happening too much."
We begin breaking news tonight out of Goldsboro. A 7-year-old airlifted to ECU Health Medical Center after being shot by an 8-year-old relative.
An Elkhart family is grieving tonight after their 15-year-old child was accidentally shot to death over the weekend.
16-year-old Shakori Smith died last month after police say a 15-year-old friend accidentally shot him.
A 2-year-old is dead after finding a gun.
This is now the third accidental shooting involving a child since Friday.
A 6-year-old student shot a teacher with a handgun.
Just this week, an Indiana toddler caught on a doorbell camera playing with a gun like it
Tyler
was a toy.
Ellis, you see here, is the second teen from the school lost to gun violence in the last month.
Something I never want to relive ever again. I get that phone call in my mind every single day.
Go home and look at your own kids in the eye and think, would I want that to happen to them? Because it could happen.
Their son Christian was shot in the chest while at a friend's house where a gun was not locked up.
In 2018, Kristen Song lost her 15-year-old son, Ethan.
Ethan Song was shot to death at the home of another teen boy. Police say no adult was present.
The ER doctor looked at me and said, "Mrs. Song, your son is unrecognizable. He was shot in the head. And my fear is if you see him in that condition, that you will never return from the darkness."
It's no secret. Gun violence in the United States continues to grow.
Guns are the #1 killer of children in the United States. More than car accidents, more than cancer. We can't just stand by. We can't let it happen any longer.
This is the corner where I dropped off my son in the morning for school the last time that I saw him. I wonder, did they walk on the street? Did they walk? Oh, my heart just starts racing. I can't stand the thought of it. I can't stand the thought of it. That's the house.
Keep your guns safe, keep your people safe. The new motto advocates are using to promote safe storage of firearms.
We want gun owners to store their firearms safely, locked and away from ammunition.
New technology makes securing guns easier than ever.
Pop open can be opened by PIN code, biometrics, and keys.
This is about kid safety. We want to keep kids safe. There's no reason a user should not keep his gun safe.
A Whitten, South Dakota family has an important message to parents after their 3-year-old son accidentally shot himself.
Lock up your guns. There's absolutely no reason to have a loaded gun within a kid's reach.
Children who are killed or injured by unsecured guns, those aren't accidental deaths. Accident implies that there was nothing the gun owner could have done.
I think most people agree that if you own a gun, it should be properly and securely stored.
I watched my little boy's life leave his body. If I had taken the extra step to put it in a lockbox or a safe or one of these $1.50 gun locks on my pistol, my son would still be here.
A new study says thousands of young lives could be saved if adults took proper care of their weapons.
and there is a growing movement to lock up parents who don't lock up their guns.
Ethan's law says that if you own a gun and have children in the house, you've got to keep the guns and ammunition away from that child.
We need to start sending a very, very strong message that if you leave your guns around and children can gain access, there will be consequences.
State lawmakers want to require guns be locked up when they're not in use, arguing the law will save lives.
The majority of Americans do want something done on this issue.
This is Brian Judy, NRA, speaking in opposition to this bill. There are many other items around the house that cause injury, illness, or death to a child.
I mean, really, what's the difference, especially if cars are 35 times more likely to cause an accidental death?
Actually, in Washington state last year, more people were killed by guns than by cars.
I remember just taking a break, walking, had a difficult morning. I just really miss him.
This is a 20 gauge shotgun. It is a synthetic stock with Realtree AP camo.
That's
the gun, how's it going? It's the Daily Shooter here. Just wanted to come to you today with a review of the Mossberg 500 Bantam. This is a youth model.
A youth model.
Everywhere else and in all other areas of life, we choose to protect our kids, but not in this one area. And to me, it's all about money.
America's merchants of gun death are not concerned about child safety or adult safety or anything other than getting rich.
15-year-old boy shot and killed at a friend's house. It was just 4 days ago. Shadrack Hall Turner lost his life far too soon.
A 6-year-old girl and a 14-year-old boy. 2 lives cut short in 1 month in Paulding County due to accidental shootings.
A 5-year-old shot and killed at her grandparents' home.
And NRA is in all these pockets of legislators, and that is disgusting.
You know, the greed of the gun lobbies and the manufacturers is obvious, but the cowardice and the selfishness of the legislators. You'd like to get each one of them in a room, just one by one, and say, what's more important to you? If you could vote for some good gun safety laws, would you do that if it saved one kid? Or is your job and your money so important to you that you would say, screw the kid?
Yeah, I'll help you. No. No? Okay. There you go, you did it. I did.
You know, I always think about all the things that, you know, I'm gonna miss. And he was a hugger, kisser. Every night he would come to my bed. He's like, time to cuddle.
Hi there.
That's, I miss a lot. I miss that. All right, we'll see everybody at the gun show.
Nearly half of guns in this country are not locked away properly, and guns accidentally kill kids in the U.S. 10 times more often than any other developed country in the world.
It's real people that it's happening to, not just something you hear on the news.
Year after year, we see kids get killed, little kids get killed.
Hopefully this will get a good message across. I already know of people that now they lock up their guns when they never even thought about it before. Just such a small thing to do to save a life.
Kids are curious. I've been teaching for 25 years. I know the curiosity. And why would we ever blame our children for being who they are? It's our responsibility.
It was just unbelievable to me that my son is gone and no one is held accountable.
New information on that deadly school shooting outside of Detroit by a 15-year-old sophomore.
When you obtain the firearm, it was not kept in a locked container or a safe.
Yes, it was not locked.
You have an active shooter, several people down. He's actively shooting. He's in the art room. We got shots fired right now, guys.
Pogorchis came to school this morning armed with his father's shotgun and .38 revolver.
School shooters get their weapons from home more often than you might think.
76% of the time, a firearm used in a mass shooting was obtained either from a student's home or a relative or a friend's home. And in nearly half of those school shootings, the gun used was not secured or stored by its owner.
I've got in this room, actually, a 20-gauge single-shot shotgun right here. And I have them sitting here in the room, out, exposed. Why? So I can go do what I need to do. Kill things, because that's what guns are for. And you're saying if I leave my 20 gauge or 22 sitting out and I have a 12-year-old son and I don't have that locked up, that is straight up bullshit.
The NRA thinks this is asking too much of gun owners. New safes open at the speed of a smartphone.
It is our job to protect our children from themselves.
Following Ethan's death in 2018, the Song family successfully lobbied for a Connecticut state law strengthening requirements around safe storage of firearms in homes.
Voters passed an extensive gun reform initiative last night.
Washington state approved one of the toughest gun safety laws in the nation.
A gun owner can be criminally responsible if their gun gets into the wrong hands and a crime is committed with it.
The state's first firearm safe storage law makes it a crime if gun owners do not secure loaded weapons in the presence of children under the age of 16.
You may have heard me refer to this as Christian's Law. He died at the age of 15 years old at a sleepover.
Public Safety Committee Chair Kevin Payne of Peoria will not give the bill a hearing.
There are teenagers, there are people with mental illness who could end up in houses where guns aren't stored properly. Can you see that perspective, and what would you say?
If you have a situation like that, deal with it.
Last year has been a nightmare for my family and me as we had to live through this overwhelming loss due to gun violence.
Today, Representative Pamela Herndon announced they will be trying to pass the Benny Hargrove Gun Safety Act again in the next legislative session.
Based on the information and evidence I have received, today I am announcing charges against the shooter's parents.
Ethan Crumbley's parents are each charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Prosecutors say gross negligence makes them partially responsible for their son's 2021 rampage.
16-year-old Jalen Wiley was shot and killed at Great Mills High School in St. Mary's County in 2018. The 17-year-old student who killed her used his father's gun. Almost 5 years to the day of her death, the Maryland Senate passed the bill bearing her name.
New at noon, a new push to get Ethan's Law passed on the federal level.
I promise that I would fight for every child that is confronting gun violence.
We need to get it done because of an epidemic of children getting their hands on weapons.
The tragedies are preventable. It's why it's critical to pass Ethan's Law.
Congress is complicit in that bloodshed if it fails.
Regardless of where you stand on the gun issue, I think we can all agree that guns should be stored safely and out of the reach of kids.
We need leaders who have the courage to act at state houses and in Washington, D.C. and the United States Congress.
Mothers are losing children. And it's got to be stopped somehow.
It shouldn't be that difficult of a decision to make to protect our children when it comes to guns.
It is my hope that it's speaking out today motivates just one person to secure their gun. My son, Eddie Z. Holmes' life would not have been taken in vain.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We are going to now be joined by our panelists. We have Angela Weber, who is with the Newtown Action Alliance. We have Gwen LaCroix, who is also a survivor. We have with us Tara Donnelly, whose parents were killed with an unsecured weapon that was stolen from a house. And we have with us Ethan's father, Mike Song. First and foremost, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for your strength and your continued courage to push for action that is going to save lives. We know that this is not an easy thing to do, to continually relive, but we are thankful that you're here to educate us. So right now, if we can, everyone who's here and who feels the need to, please share how you've been impacted by unsecured guns.
Well, would you like me to start,
Sure,
Carmen?
we can start with you, Mike.
My son Ethan was shot and killed at a neighbor's home, a negligent neighbor's home, and it shattered our entire world. And we've cried. I always like to say we cried a river of tears and experienced the mountain of pain. And I'm crying here tonight, to be honest with you, just hearing these gut-wrenching stories. But there's a little bit of a difference tonight because of the phenomenal work you've done here with Brave New Films and those laws getting passed in these multiple states is real progress. So while my heart is still always going to be broken and it's bittersweet, I wanted to thank you for the film itself, because I think you articulate perfectly how senseless and meaningless it is to lose a child to an unsecured gun. It's the strangest thing, because it's locking up a gun is actually securing it. And, I've been opening up these safes everywhere I go, just showing people, it's going to be okay. That's it. That's what it comes down to. That's what the NRA says is infringement now. And it's just something that's just horrible. And the fact is, it's as simple as that. That's what this whole argument is about. That's too hard, And the guy in the home where Ethan died just couldn't do that. That was just a bridge too far, And I stare out at a vista in front of my office here, and there's a bridge. I'm staring at it right now, and I always walk over that bridge, and I just dream that Ethan will be on the other side of that bridge, and he'll walk across that bridge, and we'll hug in the middle. And maybe in some way, after my life is over, that will happen. But for now, your mission, our mission, every parent's mission, and many of my friends are gun owners, and they all agree, like a post said in the intro, that it's just common sense. And to the folks like Representative Chip Roy, I say to you, Chip, man to man, dad to dad, I know it sounds cool and you feel tough saying that you leave your unsecured guns lying around with your 12-year-old kid, and that you got your gun when you were 9, and that's so great. You're lucky. You're fortunate. 12-year-old kids don't have the ability to really make great decisions. And you know what, Chip? The most annoying person at the party is the guy who thinks his kids are perfect, because they're not. And that's why adults need to step in and do what the people on this call are doing. I respect them all so much. And particularly just wanted to say that the portion about New Mexico and Maryland, we were so excited and thrilled to be a small part of that effort. But the larger effort, I have to give so much credit to folks here like Tara and Angela, Gwen, my wife, Kristen, all of these gun violence prevention organizations. Someone asked me the other day, are you hopeful that this will pass? I'm not hopeful. I don't even have a strong faith that they'll pass. I know they're going to pass. They're going to pass because this is the right thing to do. So thanks for allowing us this platform, Carmen.
Thank you so much, Mike. Would anybody else like to hop in there?
Sure, I can talk about Jonah. So I did just want to reply to a comment. So catchy bumper stickers. I have one on the back of my vehicle that says it's easier to childproof your firearm than it is to bulletproof your child.
Yeah.
This is Jonah. I hope you can kind of see him and me. Jonah was 17 years old when he took his life with an unsecured firearm of his father's. His father knew that he'd struggled with suicidal thoughts on and off since the age of 8. But he decided to leave a pistol in a drawer with the batteries in the closet, unlocked. After Jonah took his life, he continued to leave an unsecured firearm unlocked on the property when my then younger son was in the hospital for suicidal thoughts after telling the University of Michigan that he wanted to kill himself with daddy's gun. And that's why we need these laws, not only to save Jonah, but then there are people that don't even get it then. Who I don't even understand how that happens, but there are people who don't understand the connection between guns and easy access and children. If you attempt suicide with a firearm, you are 90% likely to succeed. If you attempt suicide with any other method, you are less than 5% likely to succeed. It is the lethal means, and 2/3 of firearm deaths in this country are suicides. And we all know, I know as well, because I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner and I see suicidal people every day, that easy access to firearms combined with the type of depression, loneliness, anxiety we're seeing post-COVID is just a recipe for disaster. So I appreciate you all being here today, and I appreciate you going on to tirelessly speak to senators, neighbors, friends, making sure all of those firearms are secured for your children and for their children. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Tara, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Thanks so much. And Carmen, thank you so much for organizing this and keeping the conversation and the momentum going. And thank you everyone for joining and frankly for caring about this. My name is Tara Donnelly. I am in Connecticut, and in 2005, my parents, Tim and Kim Donnelly, were closing down our family jewelry store for the night. They had been married for 33 years. They were high school sweethearts, and they were just two simple, gentle, kind people. I can't say enough good things about them. And as they were closing down the store that night, a young man came into the store stating that he was looking to purchase an engagement ring. And as he approached the counter, he instead pulled out a gun. My mom turned to call the police, and he fired the gun, and my dad was shot 5 times. And as my mom tried to call the police, she was shot 6 times. Neither of them survived. The young man who robbed the store had a heroin addiction that he had fueled by way of committing petty crimes. So he stole cars and broke into homes. And just a few weeks before the robbery, he broke into a home, opened the drawer to a nightstand, presumably looking for valuables, and instead he found a gun. So the only thing that changed in the trajectory of this young man's life was access, because one gun was unsecured. And it's so difficult for me to think about how different my life would be if that one gun had been locked up. And I had the unique experience this year in Connecticut. We expanded Ethan's Law, which was so courageously passed under the leadership of Kristen and Mike. We expanded it to now apply to all homes with firearms, not just those with minors. And as part of that lobbying, I had the unique opportunity to speak to the man whose home was broken into and whose gun was stolen. And the first thing he said when he spoke to me was how sorry he was, and that this has haunted him every day. And I think it's a perspective that not everyone always thinks about, just the amount of people that are impacted, again, just by the simple act of not securing a gun. And again, Carmen, thank you so much to you and Brave New Films for making the documentary. It's difficult to watch, but it touches upon, I think, the pain that so many people live through, but it also ends on a message of hope. And I think that's really the takeaway, this unimaginable grief that so many people in this country experience that is so preventable. And we just need to keep the momentum going. When we passed Ethan's Law in the House last year, we were told so many times along the way that it was not achievable and it was a waste of time. And we, kept pounding the pavement, kept having meetings, and it passed. And, nobody on this panel is going to give up anytime soon. And, we're so grateful for everyone who's helping along the way. And like Mike, I know it's just a matter of when. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tara. So just to give a little bit of background on what they're referencing, folks. Last year, Ethan's Law was championed at the federal level by the House of Representatives, but it failed in the Senate and was not signed into law. And this year it's been reintroduced. And this is why we're here having this conversation. And we think you all can help. So 2 questions for the panel. Why is it so important to pass Ethan's Law on the federal level? And what is the strategy this go around to get the needle moved?
Sure. So if I could just, I wanted to say that I am from Michigan, and I am very proud of Michigan legislators because since Jonah's died, unfortunately, it took 2 school shootings here in Michigan, the second of which was MSU, and for us to have the trifecta of Democrats in the House, Senate, and governorship. But we actually passed an even more hefty law than Ethan's Law with even more penalties. And that is why now I want to be in Washington, D.C. every time that I can, because I feel like every parent deserves this law. And if this law had existed when Jonah died, my ex-husband would not have 50% custody of my children right now. He would be an automatic felon and be facing up to 15 years in prison. And I would know that my children were safe in the homes that they stay in. So that's why I choose to fight for Ethan's Law on a federal level. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Angela, I know you're working on this through Newtown Action Alliance, and you've got your finger on the pulse of how things are progressing. So maybe you'd be a great person to just give a little perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Carmen. My name is Angela Weber, and I'm in Florida. I entered the gun violence prevention movement 5 years ago after my son survived a mass shooting at his high school. And like the film said, almost 4 out of 5 school shooters do get their firearms from home where they are, or the home of a loved one where they're unsecured and they're easily accessed. And so whenever we pass Ethan's Law, and we will do it, we are going to be preventing unintentional shootings. We're going to be preventing gun suicides, and we're also going to be preventing school shootings. And last Congress, like Poe said, Ethan's Law passed out of the House. It did so with bipartisan support, and it was part of the Protecting Our Kids Act package. But in the Senate, we failed to get a vote on the bill. And that's because we didn't have enough votes to overcome the filibuster, which we needed 60 votes for. And so the bill had to be reintroduced in both the House and the Senate when the 18th Congress started in 2023, even though it had already passed the Senate, it had to be reintroduced. So in the, it already had passed the House. So in the Senate, Senator Blumenthal is the sponsor of the bill. It's Bill S-137, and we currently have 34 Senate co-sponsors. And in the House, the sponsor is Representative Rosa DeLauro. It's Bill HR 660, and we have 204 co-sponsors. And so with MAGA extremists in control of the House and Jim Jordan chairing the House Judiciary Committee, there's really no way that we're going to see this bill get a markup or any gun safety bills get a markup in the House Judiciary Committee. But something interesting happened just this month. On June 13th, our House Democrats announced a legislative strategy, a way to force a vote on gun safety bills in the House. And what they did was they filed discharge petitions on 3 gun bills. And we expect that Ethan's Law will also have a discharge petition filed in the coming weeks. And a discharge petition needs 118 signatures in order to force a floor vote on the bill. So if someone signs the discharge petition, they're not voting for the bill, they're just agreeing to have it come to the floor for debate and for a vote. So right now we have 213 Democrats in the House of Representatives. So we would need to gain the support of 5 Republicans in order to force the House vote. And last week, the brave survivors who lost family members to unsecured guns, including our panelists that are on here tonight, were in DC, and they were lobbying lawmakers, and they were lobbying lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. And what we've done is we've built a coalition of 200 groups. It's called the Keep Kids Safe Coalition, and we are hopeful that Ethan's Law is going to get passed, and there is a way that you can help us tonight. We know that your calls to lawmakers matter, and they go a long way in helping us push Ethan's Law along. And so one action that you can take tonight is you can call your 2 senators and you can call your 1 House representatives. There's a congressional switchboard number, and Carmen, if you could please put it in the chat, it's 202-224-3121. Again, that's 202-224-3121, and ask them to please support Ethan's Law. And then also Carmen's going to share in the chat if you're interested in seeing who our House and Senate holdouts are for co-sponsoring Ethan's Law. It's every Republican, and then the Democrats that are on the link that we've shared. And then also I wanted to let you know that every single Monday, Newtown Action Alliance offers an event for advocates like yourself across the country that want to take action, but might need a little information, want to know, what is the latest of what's happening on the floor in DC. And so I, along with Abby Kasicki from Highland Park, we host a daytime and an evening event called Lunch and Lobby and After Hours Lobby. And it is free. It is in the middle of the day or in the evening. And we'll put a link to that event in the chat. But you come to this event. We're going to give you the latest on what's happening on gun violence prevention laws. We're going to be having a really heavy focus on Ethan's Law this July. And we're going to empower you with who to call and what to say when you call. We're going to give you a script, and it's going to be based on the latest up-to-date information that we have. We're very strategic, and it's a really inviting community, and we invite you to come. So I hope to see you on our Monday Lunch and Lobby. Thank you.
I also wanted to add to what Angela said, just as far as from a strategy perspective. As Angela said, the meetings that we had last week, all of the ones that I participated in the House were on the Republican side, and look like we all are painfully aware of how divided the country currently is, particularly when it comes to gun violence. And when it comes to Ethan's Law, we don't view this as a partisan issue. We view this as a child safety issue. And, the country should care about Democrat and Republicans' children's equally. And we do. And that's the point, is we want to keep all Americans safe. And we don't want this to be a partisan bill. And we've tried so hard to get one Republican to take this step forward and co-sponsor. We haven't gotten there yet, but we did have 3 Republicans vote in the House last year. So just from a strategy perspective, in addition to this legislative work, be open to having conversations on both sides of the table and approaching it as a child safety legislation and not a Democratic or Republican bill. It's really about keeping children alive. And then additionally, just changing the cultural narrative. If you have young children and they're going out on a play date, send a text and ask if there are guns in the house. And if they are they secured? It's a question that literally will save lives. And I think the cultural change, in addition to the legislative work, is truly what will make a difference.
Yeah, I would second that too, and say that the emotional impact of the survivors are starting to come forward. And I really have to, again, say for Tara and my wife and everybody, Gwen, I've noticed that the emotional impact, when people start to realize the emotional impact that it has, a lot of things change. I think this is a situation where there's people on both sides of the political fence who are actually in favor of this. Most of the research bears that out. So I always say my friends who own guns are always saying that even though they've shown their kids gun safety and they've tried to be they also know their kids make mistakes. And so I believe that the emotional impact of a movie like this, a film like this, that Carmen and her people put together is an incredibly important piece of the puzzle. So if anyone is watching, I know that Carmen's going to try to create the opportunity to do viewing parties. I'm sure she's going to speak about that. But if you're wondering, hey, what about my particular gun violence prevention group? There's so many amazing ones. And out there, they have communities that can show this. I think the more people that see this film, that's going to bode well, because as we go state by state and start to have this incredible traction, we are absolutely going to work at the state level and the federal level. And I think if we keep pushing this issue, it's going to rise to the surface because it's probably the least polarizing issue, like Tara said. And I was with a Republican legislator, or excuse me, a Democratic legislator who was a little timid about this issue. And we talked, and after that, he started to say in speeches, this is the least polarizing issue. The idea that you're taking someone's gun away by helping them secure it is absurd. And so I think we have a lot of the stuff that we need to get this thing through. And so I just appreciate every person on this call and every person out there who's thinking, wow, my kids, I don't know where they are sometimes at a friend's home. Well, if we make safe storage incredibly important, it's going to help our country. And the fact is, all the countries out there, in the G7 have safe storage laws. They have much lower gun death rates. All the states that have safe gun storage laws tend to have lower gun death rates. Almost, I would say, almost 9 out of the top 10 safest states are states with safe gun storage laws. So it has, there's a lot of impact that it will have, along with other gun safety legislation.
Thank you all so very much. And we've got a lot of support in the comments, so we want to make sure to get to those. But I do want to make sure we ask a couple of questions here. One, there's a lot of false narratives about securing firearms in the home. So what are some of the most common misconceptions and myths, and how can we all set the record straight?
Yeah, I see a lot of misconceptions about it. How, we started with how I won't be able to get to my gun, and we kept opening these safes on TV. I think it's a great role that someone could play. I'll be the safe opener. Go buy a gun safe. A lot of people do it actually own guns, and they'll say, "This is how this works. It's a pin code safe." It's something that is incredible, has a lot of impact. I'd recommend just practicing it, making sure you know how that safe works, obviously, but it's incredible. I mean, I must have opened this thing 1,000 times. It's never failed once. So I feel that that's a really the number one misconception is that there's no real way to get to a gun that's locked up, which is absurd. And we have a lot of what I call the nightstand nuts. We had one in our legislature here in Connecticut, and I don't use the term nuts. Like, I don't really like to make fun of people for being really out there, but I use it in this one instance because it's insanity to think that your there was a legislator here with 3 daughters under the age of 10, left a loaded gun on his nightstand every single night. And his kids came in there, they had nightmares. I mean, it's just insane. So that's the incredible misconception, is that you're making your family safer by having a loaded unsecured gun, or a unsecured gun with bullets in it. It's the exact opposite. You're endangering your family. So I think those are 2 of the biggest misconceptions that pop into my head, but I'm sure there's others.
Yeah, I would like to add to what Mike has to say as far as, so I recently heard the actual number of firearms used to protect someone in case of a home invasion. The actual reported numbers, 2,000 a year, compared to, what did we say, 49,000 firearm deaths. So that just is a startling fact. And the other one I was shocked to find was that the highest number of unintentional shootings that occur with an unsecured firearm are with children between the ages of 2 and 4. So I talk to people frequently. All of my patients, I ask if there are firearms in the home. And a lot of times when people have small children, they say, yeah, but he's only 2. When he gets older, I'll lock it up, right? We've all seen children scale refrigerators to get to the cookie jar. There's no high enough point for a toddler. There's no hiding things from children. They know where things are. And that is the common fallacy, that children have no idea what's going on in the adults' lives around them.
Oh, and I have one more thing too. That's beautifully put, Gwen. And one other thing that is a big misconception on that topic is that every red state has no gun safe storage laws. And the fact is that Florida and Texas have laws. I think they could be much better. but we created a map on songstrong.org/map. So it's songstrong.org/map. And I actually went through all the states and I was like, oh, wait, some of these states that are blue or purple or heavy gun states, and now New Mexico is a very big gun state. They now have Benny's Law, which was beautiful to see that pass. We worked with the legislators there, Rep. Herndon and Senator Cedillo Lopez to get that through, and the governor signed it. So it was really exciting to be part of that team. But yeah, you'd be surprised how much support there is for this amongst gun owners, and Maine has a safe storage law. Again, some of these could be better for sure, but this is definitely not breaking down in terms of just only, blue states have safe gun storage laws.
Thank you so much. We have another question here. So what has been the most challenging as you all are advocating? Because we've got a lot of folks now wanting to support, wanting to, talk to their own legislators. What has been the most challenging aspect to advocating for this particular law in states and even at the federal level?
I think one of the most challenging aspects is sitting down with a legislator or the team of a legislator who, on a person-to-person basis, agrees with you and has tears in their eyes when they're talking to you, but then delivers the message that they or their boss can't support the bill because they need to vote to represent their constituents. But I do think that tide is shifting, and I think there is a change in the amount of people who do support this. I mean, look, it's common sense to lock up a firearm and keep children safe. So I think it's frustrating, but at the same time, I do think that it's shifting in the right direction. And again, it just is a matter of keeping the momentum going and keeping volunteers like everyone who's on this call, keeping the conversation going. Don't stop making the phone calls, because there's a lull. You just keep on going, keep going.
Yeah, I would add to that something that we heard just last week, that a lawmaker yes, my boss believes in gun safety and gun safety education, but they want to maintain their perfect NRA voting record. Very frustrating. We've also had Senate staff tell us that they're not worried about a school shooting at their child's school because their child goes to Senate daycare. So you hear a lot of really frustrating counter arguments, which aren't even arguments. And it makes it really hard to continue, going to office, hearing ridiculous comments like that. And that's why whenever I describe the people on this panel earlier as brave, it really is brave, because to take those comments and just stuff them down, grab your bag, go to the next office and lobby again. Every single time these families are telling the story of the worst day of their life. It takes so much courage. It takes so much strength. And I'll speak for them and I'll say, whenever people who are not survivors that are engaged in this movement, and I'm embarrassed to say that I wasn't engaged until I was a survivor, it just means so much. So making these phone calls, attending the luncheon lobby, taking these actions just means so very much, and it's how we're going to get this done.
Thank you all so very much. I want to turn over now to the comments in the audience. So I'm going to start off with McCall. I'm going to put it up here. McCall asks, Nebraska who tried to pass a safe storage law in Lincoln, Nebraska and failed. I was encouraged by your state success. What do you think made it happen? Personal stories in the state.
I think that is part of it. So when we started doing Ethan's Law in Connecticut, a number of people said, we don't think that's a great idea. It should be called, something more technical, Safe and Secure Storage Act, or something like that. And I think they were also nervous for what would happen to us, to be the face of this and, how nasty people can be. But we always saw a lot of logic in naming it after Ethan. So it's because I think storytelling is superior to just hitting people with lots and lots of facts. I mean, the facts are overwhelming, but maybe start with a story from a young person in Nebraska who lost their life. And if you can find that family that can stand up and say, we want to tell the story of our son to if only to save another family from going through the hell that we went through. I think that's a really important thing. And in the state, I would just start with the folks who are most likely to be in favor of it and try to put together a bill. There's on what we do on that songstrong.org/map thing is we break down the 5 components of this type of legislation. There's, whether the gun's loaded or unloaded. Is the penalty is it a civil penalty, a crime? Is it a misdemeanor, or is it a felony? Does it apply to whether the gun's loaded or unloaded? Because that clause is out because people just say, well, we don't know who loaded the gun, so you can't blame anybody for it. What is the what are the exceptions, that the outs? So in some of those state laws, they have lots and lots of outs. So as you kind of progress, I would use certainly Ethan's law as a model for that in Connecticut. But you could also look at Benny's law in New Mexico and say, hey, this is a gun state. You could even look at the law in Texas. And I would say, always remember to say, my friends who own guns are in favor of Cassie's law or whatever it ends up being. And I think what you'll find is people will latch onto it because people are emotional ultimately, and they relate to it. Use lots of pictures and photographs of that child if the family is, behind it, because for me, it was another way for Ethan to keep living, for people to see him and get to know him. So I didn't mind at all that we put our pictures of him out there. And pictures are really powerful. They see a mom hugging a child. My wife was amazing, went out and just would, her courage is just, I'm still in awe of what she has done. And she's done so much more than I have, in all honesty, for this cause. So put that mom out there, and then partner with those great GVP groups here at Newtown Action Alliance, Connecticut Against Gun Violence, and of course, all the other, what we call the bigs, with the Every Towns and the Brady's and the Gabby Gifford's an amazing human being. So there's so much community that you can build around it. And here's the fascinating thing about it, because of the folks here and everything that they've done. When President Biden speaks about gun safety, he often brings up safe storage within the second or third, maybe the fourth issue that he might cover. And so this went from never being mentioned to being the second or third out of the gate. And you could do that in your state too. Move it up the hierarchy, and as time goes by, people will start to realize, wow, my kid's vulnerable to being shot by an unsecured gun too.
I think everything Mike said is accurate. And just to add, use Connecticut as an example where it passed almost unanimously. And not only did no Republicans lose their seat over voting for it, it also was essentially a non-issue during the following campaign season. It's the tide is shifting in the sense that whereas it used to be an issue that could potentially lose a seat for politicians and legislators, it's shifting in the other direction where, again, Republican women love their children just as much as Democratic women and understand that we need to keep them safe. So I think giving politicians the confidence that not only is this not a piece of legislation that is going to challenge your seat, but it's also going to slowly start to secure it.
Thank you so much for that, Tara. And while we're on the subject of Republicans and this issue, we've got a question from Jonathan Perlow. I'm going to put it on the screen here. The Republicans who voted for it last year, what are they saying now is their reason for not co-sponsoring? Anybody?
Well, there were 3, and 2 are no longer hold their seat, but not because they were voted out, because they were retiring. And the other one we're still working on. Yeah, I would say he hasn't co-sponsored yet. We're still working on him, and again, that's where the phone calls come in.
Thank you so much. Anybody else have anything to add here before we move on to the next piece? Okay. Well, so folks, we're here because we want to not only share the message and share the stories of survivors, but we want you to take action too. And so what we do have is we're launching the campaign of Keep Kids Safe, Guns Down, Locked and Not Loaded in a Way. You can get the film if you visit www.bravenewfilms.org/secure storage. And we're going to go ahead and head out here. I'll put it on the screen. And I want to thank everyone that's joined us here tonight. Mike, Tara, Angela, and Gwen. Thank you all so much for sharing your story. And we will see you all in the legislature.
Thank you.